In July of 2024, I went camping with a few of my cousins on family land in Middle Tennessee, a lake we'd visited many times growing up. The land borders a quiet cove that feeds directly off the main channel of a popular lake, but it's far enough out that most people never come near it. Getting there is part of the isolation. You leave town, drive another 10 miles, then turn onto what barely qualifies as a road. A narrow gravel drive that dead ends in a clearing. From there, you have to park and hike almost a mile to reach the campsite. The walk in feels boxed in. On the left, the ground rises sharply into thick woods and old, overgrown trails that were once used for horseback riding. On the right, the land drops off steeply, too steep to climb down, leading straight to the water. Every so often, through the trees, you can catch glimpses of the cove and the hillside across it. That side used to be logging land decades ago, but it was never fully cleared. Now it's just untouched forest. The campsite itself is strangely perfect. Flat ground right at the water's edge, easy access to the lake, and behind you, nothing but a steep, wooded hillside. No trails, no clear exits, just trees. We set up camp and spent the afternoon swimming, relaxing, and letting my dog explore. Everything felt normal, comfortable, familiar. As evening came, we started a fire, cooked dinner, and sat around talking while the sun went down. Not long after dark, we started hearing rocks fall behind us. At first, it sounded random. Small rocks tumbling down the hillside, the occasional rustle of brush. We assumed it was an animal, maybe something coming down to the water, but it didn't move through like an animal usually does. It moved back and forth. Whatever it was kept circling behind us, rustling the brush, getting closer, but never stepping into view. After a while, one of the guys picked up a small hatchet we'd used earlier and tapped it against a rock. Tap, 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 hoping to scare it off. The response was immediate. The woods went dead silent. No insects, no wind. Even the air felt different. Cooler, heavier. Then, from the tree line behind us, we heard it. Tap, tap, tap. The exact same sound, slow, deliberate, and unmistakably repeated back to us. That's when we debated leaving, but the trail out was long, narrow, and completely dark. We decided staying put was safer than trying to hike out blind. We retreated into our tent, a large 12-person tent that easily fit the five of us and my dog. Once zipped inside, things felt lighter a few minutes later. Like whatever tension had been building had eased. Then we heard voices. It sounded like men having a low, mumbled conversation just outside the tent. Not yelling, not whispering, just talking. Close. My dog noticed immediately. He was alert and focused, but completely silent. Something I had never seen him do before. After a while, I unzipped the tent and looked outside. There was nothing there. No people, no movement, nothing disturbed. I laid back down, trying to rationalize it. Maybe voices carrying across the water from the main channel. Sound does weird things at night. I must have fallen asleep because I woke up to my cousin gently shaking my arm. The voices were back. Moonlight filtered through the tent just enough to reveal a dark shape outside. Not clear enough to make out details, just a solid silhouette. I silently woke another cousin, shushing him before he could speak, and pointed toward the shape. We stayed completely still. The figure began to move, slowly circling the tent, again and again, getting close enough that we could hear something brushing against the fabric. This wasn't curiosity. It felt deliberate, like it was inspecting us. It stayed there until almost sunrise. The sky had just started to lighten when someone finally worked up the courage to go look outside. Whatever it was gone. Nothing was taken, nothing disturbed. We told ourselves it had probably been a large cat, maybe a coyote. The voices? Probably sound carrying over water. We'd camped there too many times without incident. We decided to stay through the day, but leave before dark. The day slipped by faster than expected. By the time we noticed the sky shifting from blue to orange and pink, sunset was already creeping in. We started packing, not panicked, but urgent. It felt like we were racing something. The air was thick. Then, from the woods behind us, it came. A sound so loud it echoed across the water and down the cove. It sounded like a human scream, layered with something animal, raw, broken, powerful. We didn't investigate, we left. And whatever was out there never showed itself, but it made sure we knew it was there. It was late August. I, 9 at the time, was walking around the neighborhood with my friends G, maybe 12 at the time, S, 9, and G's little sister, M, 5. We walked to a cul-de-sac we thought was familiar, but it was on the opposite side of the neighborhood, opposed to the normal one we hung out near. We walked past a mint green house. I think it was 2 stories, and the roof looked like it had seen better days. The lawn was overgrown, and there was a rusty black car in the yard that probably hadn't been used in ages. 2 dogs, one long-limbed and brown, another I think was black Labrador, were barking and jumping at the old car. A lady with a long neck, glasses, and a messy bun opened the door and smiled at us. She invited us to her lawn to come pet the dogs. Us girls gave each other looks and decided to go and pet them, even though all of us, save M maybe, knew stranger danger. As we approached, something foul hit our noses. It smelled like when my mom used to leave meat in the fridge too long and it'd go bad. Eventually we figured it was just from the car. I saw G crane her neck and try to peer into the windows of the car, but they were fogged and obscured by the dogs jumping. We spent a while there. She chatted to us and asked questions. It seemed innocent. How was school going? How old are we? Where we live? After some time, a middle-aged man drove by in a large Navy car and rolled down his window. He said something like, "You kiddos go on home. Carly here isn't as nice as she looks." M was a very anxious child, so she looked at G and told her she wanted to go home. S and I told the man that he was probably being weird. He muttered something and drove away, but we heard a crash as he threw a glass bottle, probably a beer bottle, out his window on the other side of the cul-de-sac. The odd lady looked distressed and invited us inside. She said the man was bad. We weren't convinced, so she told some tall tale that was something like he used to have sons, but they went into a career he didn't approve and he murdered them. So we were scared and went inside. Em was last to come in and only followed because she was scared to be alone outside. Inside, a man was yelling at an awfully loud TV. He turned to face the woman and gave her a confused glance when he saw us kids, but his eyes went from wide after a moment and he nodded, then sat and watched TV more quietly. I started to get some strange feeling that something was off. The woman left us to go to the kitchen. If I remember correctly, she said she was baking cookies. I told G and S what I thought, and G brushed it off, and S shared my opinion. M was practically begging her sister to bring her home now. Eventually, we all gave in and went outside. As we turned back to the road we came from, the man ran outside and got to the edge of his lawn and stopped abruptly, as if he was scared to approach us. He called us over, something like, "Hey girls, the food is almost done. Your parents won't mind you staying." One of the dogs growled at him. He told it something I forgot or couldn't make out. A command, maybe? It and the other dogs started walking toward us. The scared butterflies grew. G grabbed M to give her a piggyback ride, and we followed her, racing back to our homes. I was shaking when I made sure S got home safe, then went to my house. I told my dad. He looked a little concerned, but didn't read too much into it. To be fair, I was light on details. Didn't exactly say any of the weird parts. The next day at school, G told me her parents called the cops, and it was a whole interrogation. We never went that way again. Stuck to our regular cul-de-sac. The next year I moved away, so I never got to check out the house again, but I hope those people are gone. I work full time in healthcare, which is a high stress job, and it can be quite overwhelming and physically and mentally draining. So, on my days off, to de stress and relax, I love to go on drives by the ocean by myself or with my best friend. Most of the time, we would go late at night to watch the stars or the moon, or simply just to listen to the ocean. It would reset our brains, relieve stress, and the long chats and laughs we would have were so memorial and special. But then something happened a couple days ago, and it's made me rethink about doing these beloved night drives. It was a cold, dark November night. Usually I got off work at 11, but tonight I was leaving work at around 1 a.m. The perks of working in healthcare. I worked in a tiny little town about an hour west of the big city. I lived about 45 minutes away and was dreading the drive home. It was very windy out that night, and as I left work, the brown leaves swirled around me in the parking lot. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter around me as I slid into the front seat of my car. When my coworker had come in to relieve me, she advised me to take the old highway home, not my usual route of the new highway. It's so windy, my car almost blew off the highway, she had said. The old highway ran almost parallel to the new highway, except it snaked through thick forest and wound along the coastline. Normally it would take me 45 minutes to get home, but taking the old highway would take me about an hour. But I wasn't worried about the time. I was just worried about making it home safe. As I drove, my headlights illuminated the thick trees lining the road. The wind would make my car sway every now and then, making me grip the wheel tighter. All I could think about was the warmth of my bed, and I sighed, turning on my Bluetooth to listen to one of my podcasts. There was no one else on the road, and a car hadn't gone by in over 20 minutes. There were no street lamps on the old highway, and it was always very dark, with thick forests on either side, little beaches, and a house every now and then. About 10 minutes later, I passed through a tiny little town, if you could even call it a town. It had a grocery store, a drugstore, a couple restaurants, and an old gas station. It was a tiny little trailer with a couple of pumps that sold cheap cigarettes, closing around 8 p.m. As I drove by the gas station, I noticed the first vehicle I had seen in a while. An old truck was idling in the gravel parking lot by the gas station. This wasn't unusual as it was a fishing town and it was starting to become lobster season, but as I drove by, I could see the outline of someone sitting in the truck. It gave me a weird sense of comfort to know I wasn't the only one awake and on the roads at this time. I kept on driving, but I could feel myself growing very tired. About 10 minutes ahead, there was a little beach that I loved, so I decided to pull over and stop for a few minutes to have a quick smoke. The cold air and the sound of the waves would probably do a better job of waking me up than my podcast would. Plus, it was stormy out, so the waves would be huge, and I loved watching the ocean's magnificent waves pummel the coastline during a storm. I pulled into the gravel parking lot by the beach and parked at the very end. There was no one else there as I parked. I put down my window and lit my smoke. I stepped out of the car for a few moments to try and get a glimpse of the waves, but the wind was so strong it almost took my breath away. The cold air was harsh as it hit my face, but it did its job by waking me up. But that was enough for me. I shivered and got back into the car, turning the heat on high. I breathed in the cold, salty air and finally felt myself relax. It had been a rough shift, and I was grateful to have a few nights off after tonight. About halfway through my smoke, headlights swept across my car as another vehicle pulled into the parking lot. It parked about 100 yards away from me and idled for a few minutes before turning off. I was plugged into the darkness again, with no sound except for the crashing waves and the wind. All of a sudden, I started to get an uneasy feeling in my stomach and was unsure why. It was not uncommon for another vehicle to be here at this hour, as a lot of people would come to the beach late at night, myself included. Some would walk along the beach in the moonlight or smoke a joint around a little fire, or young couples would come and mess around in their cars. But still, I felt uneasy. I glanced at the time. It was 1:40 a.m. Shivering to myself, I lit up another smoke and leaned back into my seat, trying to ignore the growing heaviness in my stomach. But I was enjoying the sound of the waves and was reluctant to leave just yet. I'll leave after I finish the smoke, I said to myself. Usually the beach was lit up by the moonlight, but tonight it was so dark. The only sounds were of the waves hitting the beach and the wind whistling through my car. After a few moments, I thought I heard the sound of gravel crunching, but looked around and didn't see anything. I shrugged and rubbed my eyes, suddenly feeling tired again. I was almost done with my smoke, so I put my foot on the brakes to start the car. The red lights of my brakes illuminated something through my rearview mirror for just a split second. Or at least I thought I had seen something, but when I looked back again, there was nothing there. I shook my head and tossed my smoke out of the car, laughing to myself. It's all these true crime podcasts I've been listening to. They're getting to me, I thought to myself as I put the car in reverse. I glanced at my side mirror before reversing, and my heart almost dropped into my stomach. There, illuminated by the red light, was a figure crouched down, leaning against the side of my car near the brake light. He seemed to be slowly inching closer to my driver's door. A jolt of fear ran through me, and I froze for a second. Then fight or flight kicked in, and my body chose to flight. I slammed my foot on the gas, and my car reversed quickly. The figure jumped out of the way, and as I switched to the gear to drive, my headlights illuminated a man in a dark sweater and jeans, running towards the other side of my vehicle. It was the truck I had seen earlier by the gas station. My heart sank, and I felt sick to my stomach as I floored it out of the parking lot and back to the road. I was terrified. It was about 20 minutes from home, and the old highway was basically one long winding road with very few side streets, and not many options to hide in case he followed me. My eyes kept darting to the rearview mirror, praying I wouldn't see headlights behind me. But after a few moments, there they were. My stomach dropped again, and I increased my speed. There had to be a road up ahead I could quickly turn into and hide. Luck must have been on my side, because as I turned a sharp bend, the headlights disappeared from my rear view momentarily, and I could see there was a little gravel road quickly coming up to my left. I yanked the steering wheel left, barely braking, and turned, gunning it up the little road. The road was so narrow, it would only fit one car, and I was relieved to see the road had many turns, which would hide me from the main road. After getting a few hundred yards down the road, I quickly shut off my lights and rolled to a park. I sat there, shaking in total darkness, praying I wouldn't see the headlights come up the road behind me. It was silent, except for my harsh breathing. My heart was pounding. I rolled down my window and listened. It was quiet, and all I could hear was the wind blowing through the trees. I couldn't stop shaking. I wasn't a religious person, but I was praying for all this to just be a nightmare. Nothing but darkness and forest surrounded me. I waited. 10 minutes went by, then 20, nothing. The tension in my body eased, and the sinking feeling in my stomach started to fade. I gave myself another 10 minutes, took some deep breaths, and then turned my car on, keeping my lights low. I had to do almost a 10-point turn to get myself turned back around on the narrow road, but somehow I managed to, and slowly drove down the little road back to the main road. As I came to the main road, I hesitated. I could see a few kilometers in each direction as the road snaked around the coastline, but I didn't see any vehicles on the road. I took a deep breath and turned left towards home. The whole drive back, I was tense, but I did not see that old truck again. Only 2 cars passed me, one with being a police officer and the other being a Jeep, but I made it home safely. As I pulled into my driveway and turned off my car, I made the promise to myself to never go to that beach at night again. Some people just have bad intentions, and unfortunately, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you enjoyed tonight's chilling story, make sure to like and subscribe for more haunting tales. And remember, once you enter the darkness, the stories never really leave you.